Good evening and welcome to the August 26, 2013 regular meeting of the Waterloo Community School District Board of Education. I hereby call the meeting to order. Now, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now Andrea Sparks will read the school district's mission statement.
The Waterloo Community Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thank you. And the first item on our agenda is a new partnership recognition. This is for the Delta Kappa Gamma, which is a group of teachers and educators from the Waterloo schools. Crystal Buzza is here. This is Exhibit A on page 1 of our board packet. Crystal Buzza is here to introduce them, and we've got a number of, I know one of my former teachers is here as well, Mrs. Yates, but a number of teachers here to talk about it, and they're to be an at-large partner in education for the entire district. So, Crystal, I'll turn it over to you.
That's right. Thank you. I am very pleased to announce that Delta Kappa Gamma is going to become official partner at large with our Partners in Education program. And actually, these are just some of the individuals that have been working at all of our schools doing various projects. And so we're glad that we can finally recognize them as an official partner, as they do so much to support our students, but to also support our staff. And I see a lot of them in and out of the buildings all the time. They wear a lot of hats. You know, not only do they help in the classroom, but some of them are mentors or reading buddies. They're helping schools get reorganized as we move into new buildings. So they do a lot of things that help us run efficiently. And I just want to present Sherry Moore, who's the president this year, with a certificate that just recognizes them as a partner at large. And then Sherry, if you want to say a few words and introduce your group, we'd love to have you do that. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you very much. This means a lot. I was really active in Partners in Education when I was at Hoover. My group with me today is Pat Yates, Mary Huffman, and Sue Pagel. They are all members. Delta Kappa Gamma is an honor society for women educators, and Crystal kind of gave you a general idea of what we've done. I'll kind of get a little more specific. We do have members who have acted as mentors in the early career education program that Waterloo Schools has. We have informal mentoring with teachers and students. We have unpacked and organized the elementary book rooms when they move into their new buildings. We're right now unpacking and organizing Orange, so we're out there. We also at mid-year take just kind of a little gift to the first-year teachers to let them know that they're remembered, and we appreciate all their efforts because that first year can sometimes be tough. We plan to continue doing those activities and hope that by becoming an at-large partner, more people in the school district will know who we are and think of us when it's time to do a project, especially when it's a time that someone with an education background would be a benefit. So thank you very much. We will hopefully live up to all this implies.
Yes. And Sherry, thank you. And thank you all. I would say welcome to the Partners in Ed program, but I think this just is kind of a official joining, but it sounds like you've already been doing an awful lot in the schools already. So we appreciate all the work you've done and look forward to all the work you're going to do. Thank you very much.
Could each of you tell us, like if you taught, where you taught, and how long, or just kind of your educational background and your service to the district, each of you?
I was a special needs teacher at Hoover while I was in Waterloo. I taught there for 15 years. Started out in BD and then ended up in resource. So,
super. Thank you.
I was a teacher first at Grant, before it was Cunningham, and then I went to West Middle School, and then I spent most of my career at Hoover as ELP teacher.
Great, thank you.
I started out as a special ed teacher with the Waterloo Schools, and I was at Logan, well, Carver when it was Logan, and then I've been at Lowell, Kingsley, Roosevelt. And a special ed teacher, you moved around a lot. Anyway, then I was a reading coach, and I finished up my career as the Title I consultant for the district.
Super. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Pagel. I taught in the Waterloo Schools for 39 years. And I know Bernice, and I know Andy, because Andy and I went to UNI together. And I was a Title I teacher, reading recovery teacher. I finished the last 25 years at McKinstry and then retired from Highland that last 6 months, so I got a new building. That was good. And thank you so much for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you to all
Thank
four of
you
you.
all.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for your years of service and
Yes.
going beyond now. It's really, really awesome.
I just saw your group out at Orange the other day, and I was talking to Mrs. Welch, and she came out and said, "We're all busy."
And thank goodness Orange is air conditioned now. So, yes. Thank you again. All right, the next item we have on our agenda is another donation from Target to Lincoln Elementary. And Target has done an awful lot for Lincoln. And for this item, Stephanie Mohorn, the principal of Lincoln, which is a two-time defending Schwarzenegger Award winner, and Crystal Buzza is here too. Crystal, if you could just introduce this donation. It's $1,250 to be used for back-to-school supplies for Lincoln. But again, Target has been doing an awful lot in the schools, but especially at Lincoln for
Yep.
quite a while.
Since actually 2011, that's when Target really first reached out to us, and that's when they did their library makeover. And so since then, they've continued that relationship. And one of the things with that project was when Heart of America, that was the group that started the connection, when they were going to depart after the library was done, they wanted to make sure they established a relationship. And so Target has been just really great and generous and always contacting the school, whether it's through volunteers or when they have grants coming up, they really strongly encourage Stephanie and her team to apply for that. So we are just really excited that they're able to do this donation. I'll let Stephanie explain a little bit more on how they use that.
About 2 months ago, I applied. I was encouraged by Target to apply for a grant for back-to-school supplies, and about 3 weeks ago, I received confirmation that we were awarded that grant. So after opening day, actually last Tuesday, several of my staff members and I actually went out to Target and purchased things like notebooks and pencils and all of the things that were on the school supply list, and backpacks. And so at our Meet the Teacher night, the day before school starts, we gave all of those supplies out to parents. We did keep some back for when we had students starting late, because we've had students starting every day, so that we were able just to give those to parents, whether they already had school supplies or not. We just wanted to make sure that we gave those out.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. And so that's from the local Target store?
It was
that's
through
kind of the
Target
connection?
Corporate that I applied for the grant,
Okay.
but we did go to the Waterloo Target and
Yes,
actually
gotcha.
purchase
Okay.
all of the school supplies.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And hopefully it's been a good start to the year, too.
It has.
But-
Thank you.
okay. I know it's very much appreciated.
I think they're going for a three-peat.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
Schwarzenegger.
Yes. No, you.
Absolutely. That's our goal. It is. Thank you.
We'll keep up the great work. So,
Okay,
and
we
thank
will.
you.
Thank
Please let
you.
your staff know as well.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie.
And you did a great job at the opening day ceremony.
Yes, you did.
Thank you very much.
She loves the being on stage.
All right, the next item on our agenda is Exhibit C on page 3. In this, we will get a motion on the table and vote for it. This is for a donation, a donation and grant from the Iowa State University of Science and Technology on behalf of 4-H Youth Development Program. And Mary Myers here and Angela Francis to discuss this. First, we'll get the motion on the table, and that is that the Board of Directors accept and acknowledge the donation in the amount of $114,750 from the Iowa State University of Science and Technology on behalf of its 4-H Youth Development Program of the Extension and Outreach Division. Oh, thank you.
Second.
It moved and seconded. And Mary, we'll turn it over to you just for some background on this.
You bet. About 2 years ago, we were approached by Michelle T. Meyer that we were going to be included at Orange and Carver in a grant that they were writing
throughout that year, she would call, and ISU people would call as well, asking what we were looking for, and also trying to incorporate what they were trying to do for the schools. We had a meeting a year and a half ago in the spring where they told us what they wanted to do. It included some iPads, it included writing some software, it included money for school help after school, and also doing some new electives at Carver during the school day. After that, this is a vice president grant that's been given out, and the vice president said, hang on a second, I like these 3 grants, and they're all kind of the same, or the applications, I want you to put them all together. So at that point, everything kind of slowed down. We did several meetings last year, and finally, in about January, February, things really started gelling together last year. You'll notice that the date on the MOU cites January, but we actually didn't get it until the end of July. So at any rate, I'm going to have Angela talk about some of the specific things now that are going on both at Carver and Orange.
Okay, so we have this grant with both Carver and Orange, and just to give you the highlights of what we've done so far, this past summer we did a lot of summer camps in STEM because that was one of the specific items in the grant. So at Carver we did 2 summer camps that ran concurrently, a robotics camp and a virtual reality camp, and that ran for a week in the summertime. At Orange, we sent students to a UNI robotics camp, and then just before school started, we had a group of about 15 to 20 kids out at Hartman Reserve doing a River Rascals ecology camp. And that was a great program. We were using iPads out there in the field to do some nature mapping and testing, environmental testing. And actually, the iPads that Mary mentioned, we'll be getting sets of those at both Carver and Orange. And what's really cool is there are apps that Carol, the teacher at Orange, can take with her students on those iPads and go out into the wetlands, the prairies that are around the old Orange school, and do a lot of testing just right out there in the field, bring that back to the classroom and use it with her after-school STEM club. So for the next year, this grant goes through December of 2014. We will continue to have after-school STEM programs at both Carver and Orange. And we're looking at if we have the funds left over to, again, offer some summer STEM camps next summer. Yes, so that's another aspect of this grant. We're using these funds to help contribute to the Cedar Valley Family STEM Festival, which is an event that I'm planning with the Northeast Iowa STEM Hub. So we're using these grant funds in combination with money from the STEM Hub to put together a very big STEM festival on November 21st from 4 to 7:30. It's called the Cedar Valley Family STEM Festival. It'll be at the 5 Sullivan Brothers Center, downtown Waterloo, targeting pre-K through elementary students and their families to educate them about STEM, get them excited about STEM. It's an open house style event where we have exhibitors from the community coming in to do hands-on activities with the public. So we're very proud to also showcase a lot of the events in STEM that are going on in our schools. So we'll be inviting teachers and students to exhibit at that festival as a showcase as well.
About how many students, about how many students are involved in both the summer and the after-school programs?
At Orange, Carol works with about 15 to 20 students in her after-school STEM club. And this summer camp at Carver, we had about 20 students in the virtual reality camp and 10 students in our robotics camp. And those robotics camp students, what's really great is they've decided after their summer experience to join Carver's First Tech Challenge robotics team. So they picked up a few new team members from that summer experience.
And Angela, I just want to add, I have a daughter at Orange that's been involved in the STEM program, the after-school program, and it's been fantastic to watch my girl really get involved in math and science. And that, I just want to say the energy level and what you've been able to provide has really been taken up a notch. And I appreciate grants like this because it makes that even, solidifies that program even more. So it's been really great for her.
Great. Other questions? Thank you.
Sounds like a great program. Thank you both. And our thanks go to Michelle Tiemeyer as well. Yes. All right, any further questions or discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. Now we'll move on to the time where we, anybody in the audience who wishes to can address the board. And I'm looking around the audience. Is there anybody that would like to talk to the school board about busing or any other topic? No? Then I will not read the card, and we'll move on to the next item. Thank you for being here. No, we'll move
There
on.
goes Marty sneaking.
All right, then we'll next move on to the consent agenda, which tonight consists of the minutes of our last regular school board meeting on August 12th, personnel appointments and adjustments, which include a number of new positions, staff positions, then bills due and payable between board meetings. We also have the Junior Achievement Memorandum of Agreement for the 2013-2014 school year, which looks like it's similar to last year.
Yes.
We also have the Cedar Valley Promise Empowerment Contract for preschool, and we've got a couple other preschool contracts later, but this is for the Cedar Valley Promise portion of that. And then finally, the last item is a change in the graduation dates, and particularly changing West High to Wednesday, May 28th at 8 p.m. I think Expo will be at 6:30, which I believe is the same time.
At
East,
Central. Mhm.
Yeah, and then East on Thursday, but West changed from Friday to Wednesday. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members wish to be removed? Item I, and that is the graduation date. Okay.
Item E, echo.
E, and that is personnel appointments and adjustments. Okay. Any further? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of item E and I.
So moved.
Thank, and a
Second.
second. Thank you. In discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The chair votes aye. Motion carried. That then takes us to Exhibit E, personnel appointments and adjustments on page 12.
I move the Board of Education approve the personnel items as listed.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. In discussion.
Yeah, just a quick update on what is our student enrollment looking like? Are we needing to consider making changes at certain schools, adding, subtracting? How's it coming in compared to the way we expected, and what adjustments have we made or do we intend to make?
Jane and I Dr. Lindeman and I have met daily, and it appears that there will be one area that we will adjust at one school. We both commented this is the best staffing year we've ever had. The kids are where we need them to be, and the teachers are there with them. So it's looking good. We'll have one adjustment that we will make. We're going to wait till Wednesday, and then we'll move on that one.
Okay. Total, is it too early to predict total?
You know, it's too early to predict the final total, but after the first day count, we appeared to be up, roughly 100 students. And the reason I'm hedging is Andrew is well aware that we take about 4 or 5 counts and we compare them with last year's counts. So the first day showed that we were on we'll know more Wednesday. We're going to take our second count, and we'll know more Wednesday, and then a couple of other counts. But it appears that our kindergarten class is a little bigger, and that just that may be around 50 bigger, and it appears we may be a little over 100 total as a district bigger. But again, very preliminary.
But I think the trend is that what's wrong?
You just Mike, turn Lyle's mic down just a hair. Thanks.
Or is it my voice?
Well,
but compared to history, I think the first day count has been a little higher. We've had fewer students after the first day, thank goodness.
yes.
During the last few years.
You mean it's the first day count is trending to more people being in there?
To be a more complete count,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
even though the first day count's somewhat higher,
Yeah.
I would expect the final count may not.
May not be,
Yeah,
exactly,
that's
and that's why it's so hard to tell you on day 3 of school.
This may be a good time, though, Dr. Norris, if you could explain to parents kind of the process that you go. I know you talk
Mhm.
about reviewing every day. I think you still have spreadsheets with
Oh, yeah.
color coded, and just
Absolutely.
explain to parents that it's
Well,
something
sure.
you spend a lot of time on.
We absolutely look at each school, each classroom. We have some district norms, and the norms are Parents and others always want me to give them a single number of how many students are in a grade, and we have ranges of acceptability. If it's too low, then we begin to look at doing something to mitigate that in the building, or if it's too high, the same. But Jane and Bev, and in the case of elementary, Heather Conley, in the case of secondary, Dr. Varney, sit down and they look at it. And principals are not shy in this endeavor also. Principals repeatedly call if they think they need additional staff. And so I don't know if that's enough, Mike. We literally sit down and update it daily and go through each count, each school, each classroom, and look at all totals.
Yeah, and I just, to elaborate from what I understand, and I've told parents, I think oftentimes parents just want to make sure somebody's paying attention.
You better believe it.
And that they may say, my child's first grade class is very large, and there are others, you know, they need to add a teacher. And it's not always it has to be tomorrow, but just to know somebody's looking at it or figuring out what the numbers are. And so I would say generally about 2 weeks.
At the
Is that
very
the-
latest, yeah.
Okay, usually
At
a
the-
week to 2 weeks is when you make those decisions.
Mhm.
Okay, but you do have to draw a line somewhere.
You gotta
I mean,
make
I guess
sure.
You can't wait. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Andrea,
To all
did-
of you.
Yeah, I had a question about, on page 13, we have more language interpreters this year than we've had before. Is that just because you were able to find people to hire for those positions?
Language interpreters were employed by the AEA, and we brought them on.
Okay, that's what
So
it
that's
is.
why you see
Okay,
that in
yeah,
place, yes.
okay, thank you.
Bev, what is this, on the same page? ELL district.
Marshallese
Marshallese.
interpreter.
Yeah, what is that?
An
Interpret
interpreter
that for us.
that serves the Marshall
Marshall
individuals from
Islands.
the Marshall Islands, when we have a significant
We
population
do?
of, yes, we
Yes.
do.
Wow.
And Bev was marshaling her resources so she could get, never mind, sorry.
So do we, these are just, are these just assisting in the classroom? We don't have any classes that we teach.
They provide support, they provide interpreting, they work with parents.
But we don't have any classes taught.
Taught in that? No.
Did we have these included in our diversity for the Des Moines Register with all of this diversity tonight in this book? We are really diverse, have a very diverse staff.
Yes, I was proud of that article, but it was just a little mention in there. Yeah. All right, anything further? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. That then takes us to Exhibit I regarding the high school dates. It's on page 41 of your board packet. And this is really for, I guess, information, not for approval, but discussion or questions?
Yeah, I just actually wanted to just make sure that all the parents know that this was done for a collaborative effort, because the Friday evening, and the district does a good job of trying to rotate Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the graduations, and this year it was West Friday to have the graduation, and so people that coming from out of town, that's a lot easier than Wednesday. But when we moved school back a week, that conflicted with my Waterloo days, and so if we would have the graduation on Friday evening, then the My Waterloo Days parade would not have much representation from the Waterloo schools. And so I just thought it was cool that we tried to work all avenues and all angles. And it isn't ideal on a Wednesday when it was West's turn to have it Friday. I have a daughter in that class. But I just think it's a great collaborative effort that we're trying to get downtown and the parade working with the schools and making it better for the parents, and we can work it with the expo. And McLeod was open, so that was good, and staff did a good job, Dr. Barney and Jane and everybody working with that. So that was, I just wanted to bring that up and make sure that parents know that it wasn't done intentionally. It was done with a real purpose.
And I want to thank
Thank
Sue
you.
for explaining
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Because
Very
I didn't
good.
I
notice
wanted
that.
to know the rationale
Yeah.
behind it, so that explains it.
Well, actually, we were driving in the car with my daughter, and it was in right after the night after we approved it, and I said, Rachel, your graduation's Friday, May 30th. And she said, Mom, that's the Waterloo Day Parade. And I'm like, oh.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was
Okay. Okay.
Is
that before it started. So.
Yes.
Is that really what you said?
Well, no.
It was paraphrased.
Oops. Yeah.
I said, wow, Lyle really screwed that up. So
Well, thank
truly,
you.
because some
Thank you for the
parents
explanation,
had
yeah.
heard it was the 30th, and I
Okay.
had a couple parents even
Okay.
say, oh, it's the 30th, and I said, I'm thinking we're trying to work this.
Yeah.
So.
No, that should work out well. Thank you for the explanation. Yeah. It does sound good. Thank you. Anything further? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda for action, and that's Exhibit J on page 42. This is well, I guess technically the second of three preschool or pre-K programs. This is regarding the Head Start program, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the contract service agreement between Tri-County Child and Family Development Council, Inc. and the Waterloo Community Schools for the 2013-2014 school year. Can we get that motion on the table?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. And Kim Youngkin is coming up, and Charlotta Sudduth from the district is coming up as well. And I think this is similar to this past year and previous years as well.
It's identical
By
to
going through
last
it,
year's.
so, yeah. It looks like it's the same fee, or the same dollar amount as well, so, okay.
Because of sequestration in Congress, the button. I did. Okay, sorry. Because of sequestration in Congress, if you will, we were reduced in funding by about $325,000. And we did not pass that reduction onto our contracted districts. So it's flat funding, but it's better than the 5.27% cuts that we took, which resulted in a reduction of about 76 children in our community. So. Sort of. Because Head Start is focused on low-income families, some of the children would be able to work through the scholarships that you just talked about in, actually, that's backing up title or shared visions. So we have some opportunities in shared visions, but again, most of those programs are usually full as well. So unfortunately, it's not impacting this year's 4-year-olds. It's really impacting the 3-year-olds that we have in program this year. So we'll see what can happen going forward.
Just curious on the sequestration, what you hear about that from any national organizations or anything else? Any update? Is anything going to change?
Yeah, it could get worse.
Okay. Is there another round coming?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
when is that?
It'll be January of 14.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Unless Congress can decide to pass a budget. That'd be nice.
It just doesn't seem very likely.
Doesn't.
Right now.
It doesn't.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know there must have been a tremendous amount of work in moving things around to provide for services with the less funding that you have, but still the same rate for the district. So we appreciate that.
Well, we
thank
do
you
too.
for all you're doing.
And
Yeah.
it's a very important project to us.
Mhm.
So
Oh, definitely.
we believe in our partnership very strongly.
Definitely.
Good results for children.
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the chair votes aye, motion carried. Kim, thank you again. And Charlotte, if we could hold you up here for the next item on the agenda.
I just want to thank, I'm sorry,
please.
I wanted to thank Kim for being the mother of one of our Gold Star teachers.
Oh, yes.
You do a lot of good things, Kim, but that was a really good one.
Yes.
Thank you.
We saw the video just last Monday, actually. Yeah. Yes. Congratulations. All right. The next item on our agenda is Exhibit K on page 57, and this is actually a whole host of contracts regarding the Iowa Voluntary Preschool Program. And there are seven contracts, six contracts for voluntary preschool, and then two which provide itinerant services for our teachers. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the Iowa Voluntary Preschool contracts for 2013-2014. Keep that motion on the table, please. Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Okay. And discussion, Charlotta, you're here, and again, this seems similar to last year, what we had, but if you could just provide some background information, that'd be great. Thanks.
Just exactly what we had last year. Good evening, Board. We
evening.
just contract out with 8 different sites to provide our early childhood programming. To the extent of the letter of the law, we provide voluntary pre-K services, 10 hours free a week at all of those locations. They welcome our partnership. It helps raise the quality. You know, a rising tide raises all boats. Win-win. And so we're going to see those children eventually in our district. And so what a great opportunity to get out into the community and help affect change in that way.
And just for any viewers, the programs are at Grin and Grow, or the contracts are with Grin and Grow, Community United Child Care Center, Emmanuel Lutheran, Family YMCA, and Cedar Valley Catholic Schools are Blessed Sacrament and Sacred Heart, and then in Evansdale, with the itinerant services, it's Learn to Play Early Childhood Center, and then A to Z Early Childhood Center on Donald Street in Waterloo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Are those the same ones you had last year?
Yes.
Have you been talking to Mr. Schmidt?
As
You're both a little raspy on the voice.
you know, actually, Lyle came over to our Kittrell Early Childhood Center last year.
But not recently. I wasn't contagious at the time.
Graced us with his appearance, and you know, we had a great conversation. And any of you all are welcome to any of our locations at any time.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all you're doing as well, and your staff as well. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The chair votes aye, motion carried. All right, Charlotta, thank you again, and Kim, thank you as well.
Both of you.
Yeah. All right, the next item on our agenda, and this was in addition to our agenda, it's the approval of the superintendent's contract and pay per performance plan. It's Exhibit KA, and again, it was added so it shows up as number 105A in your board packet. Okay. And Dr. Norris will go down, we'll get the motion on the table, and then I'll actually provide a little bit of background information now. We've been working on a pay-for-performance plan for a couple of years, I think. It's something that's, I believe, pretty common in the private sector, but we found out it's pretty unique in the public sector, and particularly among schools and schools in Iowa. I think it's very unique, if not unprecedented. But there's been a lot of work done over the last couple of years, but really in the last probably 6 months in earnest, by a committee of Lyle Schmidt and Sue Flynn and Andrea Sparks from the school board, along with Dr. Norris and Dr. Norris's staff. And so we've finally brought it together with the metrics that Dr. Norris will go through tonight. What we've got in our board packet and what we'll have in our motion is to approve the superintendent's contract, an extension for another year, with a total package increase of 2.3%. We went on the baseline of 3.8%, was generally in the range that we had for our bargaining groups and also our administrators in the district. And what we've done with this, the metrics we've got in the pay for performance plan is put in a 3% pool. Now, almost all the indicators in the metrics that you'd earn, and Dr. Norris can explain this, are aspirational, are goals that are above the status quo. There might be a couple of exceptions, but very, very few, but everything is above it. So the status quo does not reach a goal. What we thought was fair was this year, especially after our pilot program, was to meet half of the goals would give half of 3%, 1.5% added to the 2.3% base would be 3.8%. So if there were more than half the goals met, that would be above 3.8%. If there were less than half, it would be obviously below that. And so we'll go through again the metrics here as well and turn it over to Dr. Norris for the presentation. But this is something that's been in the works for a long time, but thanks to the committee and everybody that's worked on it, it's finally coming to pass. Now we'll get the motion on the table and then turn it over to Dr. Norris. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the proposed contract package and pay for performance plan as outlined.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. And Dr. Norris, we'll turn it over to you.
And I'm going to ask Sue and Andrea and Lyle to jump in at any time because it has been a total collaborative effort between the four of us. And then Dr. Lindeman, Dr. Barney, Dr. Smith, and Michael Coughlin have also, as cabinet members, participated. And I think we'll first look at the guidelines just for a second. Those guidelines came from our meetings, and we heard two themes, and I'm not going to read each guideline, we'd be here all night, but the two themes we discussed all throughout the purpose was an incentive to drive productivity, and very important, and so we tried to keep that in mind the whole time, and also a vehicle to communicate accountability with all of our patrons in the district so that they could feel like that administration wasn't just getting automatic salary increases that were all identical year after year after year. So an accountability component and a incentive component, which would be aligned with the private sector in many regards. We aligned the plan to the 5 focus areas, and we're looking at growth. Jane will explain a couple of things tonight about growth. I think some of the board members are aware of what we're doing there. And I think the only other thing I would point out is that the cabinet will be joining me this year in piloting this document. So we sink or swim together based upon a team. And then we're developing this year metrics for elementary level, high school level, middle school level. And our various administrators will be involved in that, and we've got some volunteers from the principal ranks that are going to help do numbers like this and get behind this. And so I think there's a lot of unknowns out there among principals, but I do think they're open to it and felt they appreciated Lyle, Sue, and Andrea saying that we could pilot it this year, 1 year with principals. So that's
Gary, if I
yes.
could add
Please,
too, I just,
please.
in going through them, and also I think this is above and beyond your expected
Yes.
pay performance. So it is not grading you on what is expected of you, it's goals set above that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out, Sue. That is number 8. Well, nope, it's actually number... Yep, the administrator's base pay plus a cost of living, which is what you're doing tonight at the 2.4%. That's for your job responsibilities. And then the second part of it is for accomplishment of targets. And if you look at the second sheet on this page, the chart, Lyle described it. I picked up that wording, a walk-in plan. The issue is taking the public sector folks and converting them over to a somewhat of a private sector mentality, and we thought this walk-in plan would help. In other words, in year 2, we'll actually, for the rest of the administrators, do less than the teacher bargaining contract, but their performance pay would be more, and then year 3, 2% less than whatever the teachers settle for. And so, and then we'll look at it, of course, all along, but especially in year 4, determine, do we want to keep going farther, etc. So, Lyle,
Right,
Andrea,
yeah.
I think Lyle has something.
Just as an additional background comment, this really began during the interview stage, 5 years ago, whatever it was. But I think it aligns very closely to what the state's been talking about in terms of creating something that's more performance-based. And as Dr. Norris just said, it starts the first year with a little bit of performance-based, and then each successive year, a higher percentage of the pay is at risk, if you will, of achieving certain results. So it becomes more in alignment with what a lot of private sector programs are. But I think it'll be interesting to see the comments by other districts and the State Department of Education, because I think we may be out in front a little bit on this.
I haven't heard of anything that is. There's certainly performance aspects to many superintendents' contracts, but as far as actually having 40, 50 metrics that are evaluating, I don't think that's been done in Iowa. Some of you know that it was similar to what happened to me in Sarasota. Let's.
Oh, I just wanted to say something.
Please.
Okay, I just wanted to say nothing is set in stone. The board can always modify.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then also, Gary, I wanted to add with the metrics that you're going to be going over, I think it was very important for Lyle, Andrea, and I to, student achievement is always the headline that, up or down, and we thought that also, even just like the Leader in Me program, the whole aspect of the whole person. So we are going through, we're not basing it all on test scores, and we broke it down, and that's why there's so many metrics, because we just felt that it's more of a fair analysis and an overview of the entire job you're doing, not just test scores.
So that's a great point, Sue, and if we look at the 5 strategic focus areas up here, we have weighted student achievement and development as the highest weighting, and that gets 40% of all of the extra pay for performance. And then going on down, we've weighted human assets as 20%. We've weighted financial sustainability and operational excellence as 10%. Community engagement is 10%, and then climate for learning 20%. So a full 60% on student achievement and on climate, which you might expect. And then the others are all important, but we won't go through each line, but we've made some changes today that Lyle and Sue and Andrea haven't seen, but I wanted Jane to do just a little bit more on the rationale of the Iowa assessments, if you would, Jane. And so if you'll look at the top 6 lines, if you will, and can you all see that on your screens, your computer screens, if you'll press the blue buttons? Go ahead, Jane.
Okay. On the first 6 up there on the screen, or on your screen, what we did for the benchmark, just to explain that 60%, it's a fairly new measure, and I had the opportunity to explain it to a couple of you today. But really what that 60% is, 50% of our students meeting the norm, the typical group, would mean that we performed like the norm group. we want to exceed that. We want to outperform the norm group, and so we're actually kind of moving that curve over a little bit so that we would have 60% of our kids exceeding the national norm. So that's why we set the 60%. That is a fairly new score or a new statistic that we can pull from Iowa testing programs. So we're kind of getting used to it. I think the administrators have had quite a bit of, or had more familiarity with that than what the teachers would, or maybe what you might have seen. But it really is outperforming. We debated on whether we should do 55%. We have a new person, our
Heather Connolly.
Yeah, executive director of elementary is coming from Chicago, and they use the number 55. So, skewing the curve a little bit more, where you have 55% of the kids performing as well as the norm group. We actually decided to go for 60. I would add right now, just to kind of make sure that you keep it in mind, it is a new test this year for the third time in 4 years. We are changing tests, so we're doing a different version of the test. No one has had a preview copy of that test. No one has seen it. We have no clue whether it's a little easier, a little harder. We just don't know. So, we'll see. I mean, we don't know unless we start somewhere. So we picked the number of 60. We knew it was a stretch goal. If the test is even harder than this year's version, that could be a really large stretch goal. So we'll see how that goes. But I could go through, at a later point in time in detail, kind of show you the supporting documents that show where that 60% comes from, but it is really quite a stretch goal to go.
So if you look, for instance, at the line I've highlighted now, the high school math assessments, in our first pilot year, we only did only 32% of the students were at the expected growth area. And so the way we reformatted this today is we were going to try to get an increase of 5%, but we really all agreed as a cabinet we can't settle for 5% onto 32%. We need to be, at least 60% of our kids need to be performing at that expected Iowa testing normed group level. And again, in some of the documents you've been given from Jane, there's all of those norms are explained.
So based on the information from 12-13, you would have made it in 2 of these 6 areas, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
The other question I have is, when you're looking at this test, is the 60% based on, it's only going to be based on the test that they take this year, so that you want the students to be in the 60th?
Yeah, that's why it gets to be a tricky measure.
Or are we going from last year's test too?
It would be using the test from spring of 13 to spring of 14. So it'd be 1 year. So we'll look at the growth for the students for whom we have 2 data points. I mean,
Right.
if they're new to us and we don't have that, then that would be different. But for the great percentage of kids who we keep, we would be looking at their growth from spring 13 to spring 14 and comparing that to other students who tested from that, 6th grade to 7th grade, or 7th grade to 8th grade, or 3rd to 4th. So looking at and comparing how our students did, they at least gain as much as the norm group, and we're asking for our kids to outperform the norm group.
Okay.
In all levels, the highest level outperform
Yes.
and the lowest level
Right.
outperform.
And maybe just to clarify, this has nothing to do with the percentile
No.
No.
Thank you.
ranking.
Very good.
This is based, the 50% is the average expected growth of students that are doing not so well, doing average, doing well.
Right.
And it's not just Iowa. It's a national
National
norm
norm.
test.
It's the
not just
national
Iowa. So
norm.
it's anybody who uses the test, whether or not, this gets out of that other
The,
realm of.
the
So
bottom line is, if we do 60%, 2 or 3, 4 years, our scores are going to be
Yeah.
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 going on a trend line like that.
So it's significantly higher than the average
Yes.
academic growth that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the-
Lyle, I appreciate you making that point, because sometimes people will misinterpret that, and they'll say, well, they only want them to know 60% of the questions.
Yeah.
Or they only have to score in the 60th percentile. It has nothing to do with that, nothing at all. So, if anybody out there listening has any questions, you just would need to ask, because we could definitely show you the documents that will help explain that.
Well, the bottom line is we know that students that scored something the year before are likely to get a certain number the next year. And we know that about whether students are medium performing, high performing, low performing, and we can now predict what they'll get in subsequent years. And so we've made this a pretty sizable stretch goal.
And you've also said that you're following 6th to 7th compared to 6th to 7th the next year. Are you following the same students as well in another,
Absolutely.
or is this?
Every year, every child. So you can follow how a child does from 3rd to 4th, and then to 5th, and then to 6th. And so every year you can track that same child. You can look at it any way you want. You could look at Caucasian students. You could look at Hispanic students. You can slice and dice it any way you want. We just want to look at every child every year to see how much they're growing in compared to what we know they should grow, or typical growth is. So it's really a nice feature of the Iowa testing programs. We've just never had that precise of a measure before, until this last year was the first year for it.
So we've got to move a little bit, but those are pretty substantial indicators there. You're going to be basing a lot of any performance pay, if you will, off of the top here. And another sizable one is DRA2 reading. And so, Jane, just touch on that if you would, please.
Yeah, it really is a growth goal as well. It's very similar to the first 6. We are saying that 92% of our students should meet or exceed expected growth from fall to spring on a different measure, not Iowa assessments this time. It's a DRA2, which is a literacy score. So we give that at we actually do give it to kindergarten, but not until mid-year. So we've actually excluded them from this particular metric, but we're looking at 1st through 5th grade. So making sure that they're growing.
So the year before, we hit 77.6%, and then we targeted 84%, but we hit 89.3%. Right. So we moved that on up then to 92. So And that is just another measure of growth, but that again, we were really pleased with the 89. It's again just one measure. The other ones are a little easier to understand and a little more common. The district graduation rate. We had set after 77%. In 11-12, we were all pleased with that. We had set a goal of 79 and then did not make that goal. In fact, we had dropped back to 74. So we've kept the same 79 goal there. If we hit that 79, that will be the highest graduation rate ever in the Waterloo schools. 77.3 was close to the highest, but that would be the highest ever. So it's a stretch goal. The ACT we converted today from numbers of students, we converted to percentages. The reason we did that is someone reminded us this morning at Cabinet that the class varies in size each year. So if you were going from 300 kids to 320, the class itself might have changed in size. So we're accomplishing the same thing, but doing it as a percentage. And the 20 there, the number 20 is a national mark for on target for college, success at college. So, and then PBIS standards, just simply to say we've been increasing the number of buildings each year. We actually increased 3 last year, those that have finished and have a solid PBIS program going, and we're shooting for 16 at the end of this year. AP tests, very similar, only we kept that an actual number of students taking AP tests, and the number scoring 3 or higher. 3 or higher is where you get college credit on the exam.
And Gary, did we clarify that number where we went, let's say a student takes 3 different AP tests, is that counted as 1 or 3? 3. 3? Okay.
And then we converted the post-secondary enrollment classes and enrollees to actually a % of the graduation class. So the numbers you see there are the exact numbers, but they're not the actual number of kids. They're the percentage. And we've written in some fairly significant growth goals there. National merit, since it's only one child and we're going to try to double that to 2, it's that's very much of a stretch goal. Any questions on the big part there, the 40% part? Some of the ones that we had under consideration are still on the consideration list, but we didn't have enough data yet, enough development to move them forward. So these were the ones that we had the data that we can call upon next June. So then, not hearing any questions, I'm going to move down to human assets, and that is where we're spending a lot of time growing our wonderful staff, both certified and professional staff that we have, our non-certified, and we have had a steady increase there in numbers of non-certified staff taking classes, and it's beginning to pay a major dividend in terms of customer service and things like that. So you see the number of courses we're offering has almost, for next year, if we hit our target, will almost have doubled from a couple of years ago. We've really put a lot of emphasis on developing the non-certified staff. And then one that I'm kind of proud of, and we want to hit higher, but of the teachers that we hire every year, we know one thing that the research tells us, that if a teacher sticks it out 3 years into the 4th year at a district, not only in the profession but in the district, they're likely going to remain in the profession. They have a much greater chance. A lot of the first, second year teachers that wash out, and I don't mean that in any way derogatory, but that just say, hey, I'm not in the right profession, whatever, this is different than I expected. That usually occurs because there's not a good enough induction program in the district, and we really are trying hard in that area. So as you watch this number, you'll be able to say, hey, the people that we hired exactly 3 years ago, they're entering their 4th year. Building climate, I think the board knows we launched a K-12 Insight building climate survey. There's probably 40 or 50 questions on that. We targeted the question that we thought was most applicable to just a one-line thing, building climate, and the question read something like, do you feel valued at your work site? That was close to building climate. And 80% of our teachers this past year said they did. And so we set as a stretch goal 83%. Teacher attendance rate, and this is for all absences. If you remember, we had 2 categories on there, both with professional development and without. We decided, the committee very emphatically said, no, when a teacher is out of the class, they're out of the class. We are working very hard in the district and with a lot of help from WEA to move professional development to summers when possible. So you'll be able to track this number. We know that, Jane, quote me if I don't quote this right, research shows that if a teacher's gone more than 10 days out of a class, learning significantly suffers. And so we want to make sure that we follow that as well. Employee recognitions, Sue and Andrea and Lyle challenged me to pass out 5 recognitions a month, a personal recognition from the superintendent. We're taking nominations from each of these. These aren't going to be an attaboy. These are going to be a big deal, that someone that is really hitting one of those global thinking, global leadership, global thinkers and so we'll make a big deal out of it. We'll go to their school, we'll give them a globe pin, and they'll when it's practical, we'll have a video made of what they've done for the district and put that on the website. So Pardon me?
Grand prize trip around the world.
Oh, we'll go in for a drawing or what? Okay.
That'd be appropriate.
So, and then
That comes out of your
wellness
salary.
initiatives have been on the increase. And then we decided on this last one, because of a potential conflict of interest, how do you give the superintendent a performance bonus based upon anything to do with teachers being on plans of assistance? And so I want everybody to notice there's zero pay attached to that, but I think our cabinet thought that as a board, though, you still need to know what we're doing and still need to track our ability to find a problem and then to assess that problem and then to work at it. And we think it's a great success when that teacher improves and they're no longer on a plan of assistance. In some cases, it might be good for kids that the teacher moves on, as we said earlier, and finds a different career. But there is no way that we all thought that ought to be attached to superintendent's pay plan. So, but we will track it, though, just for your benefit. And then financial sustainability. The reason we shaded these numbers in green is Michael is still not 100% ready to put his final seal behind it. We were going for a target of 7.8% unspent balance, and Michael's estimate at this point, and he's pretty firm on it, but still a few things to massage, is 6.8. And so we set that. This is a something we can't afford to go any lower than that. And so it will be a huge stretch to hit 6.8 next year. And let me tell you why. The expenditures built into just the way the district operates would be an increase of about 4% or $4 million every year, ballpark. And so to hit 6.8% next year, which we've got to stay above the board's goals of 5%, will take cutting the budget another $4 million roughly. So did I say that correctly, Mr. Coughlin? General fund ratio, salaries and benefits to expenditures. The reason for that is we want to make sure that we're pumping the right amount of resources into the classroom. And then, of course, that's all employees. The next one down is is resources going directly into the classroom. Could be teachers, could be paras. Can you think of anything else, Michael?
Yeah, that would be the numbers that you've quoted have been based on things staying status quo. If the ed reform
yes.
Plan is infused, that will have an effect on all of this, and we expect that. But
we're playing using a gambling term, we're betting the come on the fact that having about 40 literacy, instructional, mathematics, and all of those coaches working at professional development is going to make a huge difference in our achievement. And that's the board's well aware of what we're doing. We just can't afford to go any lower than the 6.8%.
yeah, just to give a comparison, the ed reform award would be in the neighborhood of $3.5 million. So there's a lot
annually.
Annually.
Which would pay for a big chunk of the teacher leadership positions and would put us in a much better stead on this.
I'd like to comment on the 10% there.
Please.
That doesn't reflect the overall importance of this item. What it reflects is if we take where do we want to drive improvement, the extraordinary effort during the next year. So it kind of underpins everything, finance, and it needs to be solid. But you can take it in the sense that it's in relatively good shape, and so we want to maintain or improve a little bit there. But every board, every year, depending on where we are, can change, especially that left-hand column, the percentage that goes in each one of these. Right now, finance is 10% because academic improvement is a greater, higher priority right now, but partly because we think the finance is pretty well
Good, well said.
situated right now. So
That's the importance of this whole plan, is the ability to adjust as board priorities change. And then moving on down to notice, we don't get any increase on the target, Mr. Young, unless we keep the tax levy lower than the year before. So let's move quickly to community engagement. We have got some, Crystal was telling us today that one of the toughest things about mentors, it's a very, the people work very hard that are mentors. And there's a natural turnover built into mentors. So to achieve our target of 217 above 210, you not only have to get some more mentors, but you have to replace the ones that retired from last year. So it's not as easy as just adding 30 more mentors or whatever. School partnerships and business partnerships are a little more, they don't go away as easily as a mentor would need a respite. Infinite Campus, we adjusted the second part of Infinite Campus. We're trying to grow parents with accounts, and we know that more parents will be interested the more interesting things teachers put on Infinite Campus. But we also are trying to get students to log on more, and so we're increasing those number of weekly log-ons. That's an average log-on for any given week. Parent conferences, something really important to all of us, and it's kind of astounding. I think we were all a little taken back when we saw the high school level one. It's roughly half of the elementary, but we've all been parents. We all are parents, and we know what our kids tell us at high school. Don't go to that conference. So I think that's just one factor in parent involvement in our district. Community use of facilities, it's been on the uptick. I can tell you this, there's not a night of the week that there's not multiple activities going on in our schools, some very much community driven. Okay, and then parent satisfaction. Most of you got and completed a parent survey. We picked the one question out of the 40 questions that seemed to represent what we thought you were after, and that was the number of parents, the percentage of parents who said they're happy with their child's school. There's, again, you can slice and, to use that expression, slice and dice, you can go back and look at our 40 question, any of you, anytime survey, but this is one question that was kind of representative. And then community speaking events, I don't think we're going to have a lot of trouble hitting this target this year, given the community events planned around the high school task force. And then faculty meetings, we've substantially increased. So not just faculty meetings that the board wanted to be a part of, but other visits at schools. And then finally, one that we made some modifications today, and Jane, you may know this better than I, but daily attendance is huge. We want to keep driving that up. It's harder to make a percentage point gain in attendance than almost anything else. So that's why you say, well, it's not very far from 94.2 to 95. Well, it's pretty significant. So that's important. We then, there was a few changes on the school safety survey, the IS3 and East and West, and one of the questions there are number of students who report that they've got positive relationships with the adults in the building. So that's almost in itself a climate assessment. Would you agree? It's the kids that are satisfied with that. We then, I see that Jane and Cora changed the other two today. Number of students that do not receive any suspension. So it's a positive indicator of people that have been in good behavior. And then the board members, we had on extracurricular involvement, we had 3 or more, if you remember, activities. And we changed that, you all changed that back to, some of the board members changed it back to one activity, and so the percentages are way bigger, obviously. And so we're going to be tracking the number, the percent of kids that are involved in 1 or more activities. And then finally, bullying and violent offenses.
And this, I think the most important thing about this, and Andrea mentioned it, is this can be changed and it will be changed. Really, the board only deals with the superintendent's contract, not with administrators or anybody else. But and it's a two-way street basically between the parties. But it's something that I think will change over time as we learn more. I think, but getting back to the original 2 goals of accountability and then an incentive for performance. I think we'll figure that out, but I'm so appreciative to the committee and Dr. Norris, everybody that's worked on this, because again, there was no guideline from anybody else in the state of Iowa that's been doing this. Now, some of this stuff I think is simply common sense, and it's surprising that there's no other guideline within the state, so we're creating it as we go. But we'll learn lessons and we'll figure out what we need to tweak over the years. I know it seemed like we learned a lot from even piloting it, so to speak, over the last, almost like a dry run over the last year.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when you work on this, you think of, this is what we do here. This is what the school district does, and these are the things we try to pay attention to. So,
it's a very good point. It was so helpful to me to realize all the different factors that go into the superintendent's job, because you can't just look at one item without, in a vacuum, without looking how everything else fits in. Finance is a great example. If you ignore that, that underpins, Lyle, as you said, everything else.
Well, and I too want to thank the staff that helped get all these numbers, because we did ask for a lot of information, but we thought that would create a fair assessment. And so that's why we have all these areas, because there are so many different fingers, and we just need to look at them all. But also regarding the targets, I think we've done a fair job of setting the target, and obviously targets are movable. And, you know, some of the areas, since it is new, we don't know. Maybe a target's way too high, you know, national merit finalist. I mean, that's pretty hard to get 2 from the same school district. It really is. But, you know, set one, and we have the opportunity to change that or move that, because we don't want to set a target too low either. You know, that this is based on an achievement and doing a good job of better representing every aspect of the district.
Of our trial run, we had some different measures in there, but this is for maybe the media's benefit, but of our trial run, I think we hit about 40%, somewhere in there, wasn't it, Lyle? I don't know. It was of the, if you built in $1,000, I think the pay plan would have been $400 roughly for what we did. And we saw some nice gains on achievement last year, but so, right, we're not setting the targets low, but we're also not setting them impossible. So.
And I would also like to compliment the staff, because one of the criterion was we wanted this thing to be as objective and automatic as we can, like the normal test scores. You just roll them up, the attendance rate, the things you're already keeping track of, roll them up. And so I think the staff did an excellent job. Most of these are items. And we probably added some. I mean, in doing this, Mike, you're right. It helped define what's really important to us. And then with the data we already have and are designed to have in the future, why I think it's really a solid plan. But it took a lot of work to make sure these weren't laborious to create every year.
So, for instance, just what Lyle said, the extracurricular involvement. We had kept lists before of which kids were on which team, but now it's an infinite campus, so it's just automatic. So every student's file is tagged electronically by what extracurriculars they're in. So we just built, the staff built systems around all of this to collect data. So it's in place. So I agree with you that staff did an amazing
And
job.
another positive, I think, is can move from superintendent to superintendent to superintendent. You know, it can move along with cabinet, with, you know, eventually principals, whichever areas we decide to move it to. But
Are you trying to tell me something, Sue?
No, I'm. But I just think that it's, you know, it's an overall pay for performance for the superintendent of the district, or the assistant superintendent of the district, or, you know, we have a plan in place to evaluate all.
Your response is it can move from board to board, too.
Touche.
Dr. Norris, could you speak a little bit about how you plan on moving forward with this type of a design for the other people in the district?
Sure. We decided, let's talk about the way the cabinet will be a team member of all of this. We decided against evaluating, for instance, on this component. Michael Coughlin had 5 indicators there. So we had the choice between his whole pay for performance plan would be set up on those 5 indicators. And we started talking about it as a cabinet, and it didn't make sense, because if Michael wanted to accomplish his, it might be to the detriment of student achievement goal, as Lyle was saying earlier. So we all agreed that this all has to work together. So as we developed those for the principals, what I started doing, and I've already got some trial runs, but we'll take all of the ones that are high school driven, put them to high school, and middle and elementary, but then we have to decide which of those are district based and which are that everybody contributes to. So we're going to set with 3 committees, elementary, middle, and high school, 2 or 3 principals in each one, and get their input.
Thank you.
Again, thank you to everybody that's been involved in drafting this and putting it together, because it's something I think that's very beneficial to the district overall, and we owe it all to all of your work. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. That takes us on to our next item on the agenda, and this is up for vote. It's our last vote of the evening. It's for board policy changes for a second reading. And Tara Thomas is coming to the podium. This is Exhibit L on page 106, and we've got 2 policies that are up for vote regarding academic honesty and tobacco nicotine products free environment. And the recommended motion is that the board approve the following policies: academic honesty and tobacco nicotine products free environment.
So moved.
The motion on the table, moved and seconded. And Tara, is there anything to add on these, or kind of a background on both policies here? Yep.
Sorry, I'm live now. We're excited. The academic honesty edition, as we discussed at the previous meeting, it will help to get that ball continually rolling with the International Baccalaureate program. So this is just one component of complying with that whole process, and we wanted to make it happen by October. So
fantastic.
we've expedited that.
Okay. No, it looks great, and just for people at home, it talks about what the policy actually talks about what an academically honest student does and does not do, and discusses consequences as well. But I was surprised in reading this that I don't think we had anything.
Right. It's nice that this
yeah.
IB program would
Yeah.
spur a policy
Bring
that
that,
could
yeah.
apply district-wide to any child.
Exactly.
It's a commandment, I think.
It's not a policy.
That's a good point.
It is set in stone.
Yes. And again, I think on the second policy, the tobacco nicotine products, that's regarding, now there are what, electronic cigarettes or lookalikes and that sort of thing. So this
It's
is-
covering our base because
Yes.
there is an ever-evolving world
Yes.
of products available that utilize what are drug additives, and they are
Yes.
marketed to children. So
Okay, yes.
it's just being proactive so that we're covered legally speaking.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, I was just wondering on this, like, school district property, like, going into Central, the Waterloo Stadium there, if the public is someone smoking a cigarette, would they be stopped?
I think so. Certainly, if they're on our property anywhere, the protocol would probably be they'd be asked nicely to
Yeah.
please extinguish the. If they were getting all the way up into the stadium inside the gates, there'd probably be more consequences.
Okay.
And any further discussion or questions? Tara, thank you very much. Okay, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And chair votes aye. Motion carried. And so we're done with the action items on our board agenda. And next is the superintendent's report. Dr. Norris.
Just wanted to touch on three brief things tonight. The board is aware of this. I'm not sure if the public is, but regarding all of the training around what we call active shooter training, we are in the process of moving our thinking to be in conjunction with how the thinking is changing around the country. And that is moving from the concept of lockdown, which signifies a group of kids huddling in the corner, and the word the police use, and it's a horrible sight when you think about it, but cowering, not doing anything, not being proactive as we all like to think about, and the police, I think they made a very convincing case to the principals that there are other options. And so Dr. Barney, working with Sharon Miller, are now going to be bringing some of these concepts to our staff. And it's a gradual process as people become more comfortable. Our big push is going to be to have to find systems to get information out to the teachers where they're at. Let me give you an example. At the University of Virginia, when there was that horrible shooting of people, college campuses have now gone to texting students all around, almost like Connect Ed, only texting, which we can do. But that tells, if using UNI as an example, if there's a shooter at Schindler Hall, that would be texted out to all of the students on UNI, and they begin scattering. We've got to come up with something similar to allow people in the performance-based diploma area at West or at East, even for that matter, to know when there's someone in the gym area, totally opposite ends of the building. So we're really working at that, and our kudos to Mike Fisher for taking one in the chin. He took a plastic round in the chin because he was going to tackle the police officer, and so anyway, the staff, the administrators they've been in. You can't enjoy worrying about all of our lives, but they've been enjoying thinking of this different concept and how to better it for students. So that's, I'm glad they're involved. And then I wanted to highlight and thank all the staff that helped plan the opening day ceremony. I think it was one of the best I've been involved in, and if I started mentioning names now, I'm going to leave out some very important people. There's just lots of people either planned or participated in it. But thanks to all of those folks. And then finally, I wanted to call your attention to a UEN conference call late last week with key members of Senator Harkin's staff in D.C. talking about the reauthorization of ESEA, and we were basically debating the House version versus the Senate version, and thanks to Margaret Buckton, who gave us some explanations, it made it easier to talk to the people in D.C. So they do, the House has, if I understand correctly, the House has passed their version of ESEA reform out of the House, and we're waiting for the Senate to, it hadn't been to the floor of the Senate yet, and then it'll go to conference committee. So the bills are slightly different, but we're always going to have accountability. It may be calculated a little different.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. And next, information from board members. Shanley McNally, I'll start with you.
Lyle, do you want to go first
Oh.
before you totally lose your voice?
Fair enough, yes. Lyle Schmidt. Good. And Mike Kinchy.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Thank you. And Andrew Sparks.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Bernice Richard.
I too want to thank the staff for the great opening on last Tuesday, and I received a lot of positive feedback on Tuesday while I was out. I went to 4 elementary schools, Irvin, Highland, Cunningham, and Lincoln, and everything I heard from that staff was how great it was to have that type of opening, and everyone left there feeling like they were on a high. They were ready to roll and get busy working, so I appreciate what we did on that day. And also, I really appreciate our human resource department of hiring staff representative of our student body. As everyone on this board know, I have pushed that and actually went out recruiting people myself, trying to find people for this school district, and I really appreciate that. And when I read our one little paragraph in the Des Moines Register, I said they could have given us more space because we are on target.
Thank you, Bernice. And Sue Flynn.
I just wanted to, first of all, thank the public that we have all of our elementary schools air conditioned, so that is not a problem with the heat. And I just...
And middle schools.
And middle schools are all air conditioned now too. We finished Bunger, so I am so appreciative of that with the tax dollars that built the new schools and for the PEPL. And also, I'm glad that we are listening to the teachers, to the students who are saying it's hot, we can't learn, and we did the early releases because it isn't an environment of learning when they're that hot. So I appreciate that. And also, I know that we do have some busing issues, and it's the elephant in the room. We understand that there are problems, and we're working on those. And you know, as every school year starts, we do have kinks in the busing, and they will work out. So if you do have serious problems, the staff is proactive, and they will meet with you and try to work out your problem. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Sue. And Shanley McNally.
Just 2 things. One is that as we talk about busing, our pre-K kids start tomorrow, our little ones, our 3- and 4-year-olds. So just be extra careful when you're out and about because those are the ones that are the most likely to dart into the street and do things. And then last Thursday, the first day of school, I know we have a lot of our buildings that are participating in the Leader in Me program, and there was a great program at Hoover Middle School, and I just want to thank, we had a lot of community members. We had the Waterloo Ambassadors were there. Several of you were there, but it was a really nice program and a really great way to showcase the school and this wonderful program that we're doing in a lot of our buildings. So just thanks to the community for being supportive of that, and I hope you'll continue to stay involved in that program because it's very worthwhile.
Great. Thank you, Shanley. And the only thing I have to add is before our next board meeting are the school elections. They're on Monday, September 10th. And there are elections for Waterloo School Board.
Tuesday.
Oh, I'm sorry. Monday, September 10th is our next meeting, but then the day after that, excuse me, and Tuesday, September 10th, is our school board election for Waterloo School Board, Hawkeye Community College board members, and then Hawkeye Community College's maintenance levy. So it is important people get out to vote then. And I will remind everybody on Monday, September 9th as well, which is when our next board meeting is at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom.
And they're doing the new super, there's only
So it'll be 7 voting
places.
locations in the Waterloo
Right.
School District, I believe, but
Yep.
you can vote at any
Any
of
place,
the 7,
yeah. So
regardless
keep your
of where
eyes
you live
peeled. I'm sure
and
there'll
where
be
you register
coverage
to
of this
vote.
coming out, but
Yes. But it is different this year. Yes.
From the Courier?
Yes. Yes. If there's nothing further, to entertain a motion to adjourn. And a second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you all.